Jeff Wieser spent 30 years in international banking, U.S., Canada, Australia, and Hong Kong. But this is an 06880 podcast, so we'll focus on Westport in your second career. Jeff has been president and CEO of Homes with Hope and president and CEO of Goodwill of Western and Northern Connecticut. He's been president of Westport Rotary, chair of Staples Tuition Grants, and is on the board of Positive Directions and Christ and Holy Trinity Church, Vestry. And because all that is not enough, Jeff has served on the RTM since 2007. He was elected moderator last year. Jeff, welcome to 06880, the podcast.
Very fun to be here, Dan. Thanks for having me.
So there's a lot to talk about here, obviously, but let's talk about the RTM first. For those who know the initials, but maybe not much else, what is the RTM and what do you guys do?
The representative town meeting is Westport's legislative body, which really is responsible for the appropriating funds, ultimately, that are approved by the first select woman and the Board of Finance, and enacting ordinances and administering the town. So it's really the Congress of Westport.
Unlike Congress, it is nonpartisan.
It is as far as I know, the only nonpartisan representative town meeting in Westport, in Connecticut. There are only 6 left. There used to be a lot more, and there are a lot of town meetings and a lot of town councils. There are 6 representative town meetings. Most of them are partisan, and they run by caucus. We are totally nonpartisan, which makes us unique, and in my mind, the best form of government in the country.
So you've got the conservatives, you got the liberals, you got everybody in between, and party labels don't matter.
And we don't know really who they are sometimes. On a lot of different issues, everybody falls out differently, and we just don't know if they're Republicans or Democrats. We just think about Westport and what's best for Westport, and it really comes out to be sometimes long, sometimes laborious, but really useful local discussions that aren't based on ideology or party line, but what's good for Westport.
So give me some examples of some of the things that come before the RTM besides budget and the routine stuff.
Well, soon after I was elected in 2007, in District 4, Liz Milwee we all got together at the first meeting, and she said, we want to do something. So the 4 District 4 representatives, Jonathan Kunitz and Gene Seidman, Liz and I, worked on passing the plastic bag ban. And it took till September of that year, which is like lightning speed in the legislative world. But in 2008, September 2008, we passed the ban on retail checkout bags. Took effect in 2009, and since then, Westport hasn't had plastic checkout bags. I like to point out that since then, we've kept 40 million bags out of the waste stream, just little old Westport. We were the first town east of California to have done that. So that was one thing. We passed appropriations. A couple years ago, the Barron South property was deemed to be open space by planning and zoning. That was appealed to the RTM, and we had the opportunity to overturn the planning and zoning commission, which is a very unusual thing to do, but a lot of people wanted it to be senior housing, and that we had the opportunity to do that. The RTM has the final say in that sort of thing, and we did not get the 2/3 vote that we needed to do it, so that failed. But that is the sort of thing that the RTM has the opportunity to do. It's a lot of blocking and tackling on a monthly basis, but it is also incumbent upon them to make some pretty important decisions for the town. And when we make those important decisions, they are very, very well debated and well thought out. Right now, we're looking at the ban on gasoline-powered leaf blowers. And we're having committee meetings. We're going through ordinances. We had a first reading in September. We thought maybe we would get to it in October. That's been delayed. We have more thinking to do about how the ordinance is going to read, and that's going to be probably reviewed in November. But we're actually looking at the wisdom of banning gas-powered leaf blowers in the middle of summer. And
I imagine you hear from a lot of people.
Do we hear from a lot? But that's why we're there. We love hearing. It amazes me sometimes we don't hear from enough people, but we really want to hear from people. But we do. On some of the big issues, we hear from a lot of people. I think there have been hundreds about the leaf blowers, pro and con. And whenever there's anything involving the school board, of course, when there's school funding to do or a building or any sort of school maintenance, that really picks up the level of interest. And groups get together and make sure that people are in touch with us, which, again, we relish. That's why we're there.
Do they call? Do they email? Do they stop you on the street?
Mostly email. And I don't know that they stop us on the street because not many people know who we are. We are representative. We're just 36 people is a lot of people in a town our size. Interestingly, of the 6 RTMs in Connecticut, we're the second smallest. Greenwich has 230 people in their representative town meeting. Darien has 125. Fairfield has 46, I think. But at 36, we're among the smaller. But so people don't know who we are. But I would say that my greatest message is it's a representative town meeting. Everybody should be interested and everybody should run. Everybody should want to participate. It's really a terrific experience.
So you're the moderator.
Yeah.
What does a moderator do?
Well, interestingly, the moderator is not supposed to take part in the debate on the floor of our monthly meetings. So I really just run the meetings and I call on people and try to maintain order. I say try to. Sometimes it's a challenge, but typically we maintain order pretty well. But during the meetings, I maintain order, and then I meet with the first select woman twice a month, and we talk about the agenda, and we talk about what has to occur to make sure that the town runs well and runs smoothly, and we don't always agree on a lot of things. We often agree on a lot of things, but it really is just a way of keeping things going smoothly.
A couple of RTM members have said that if you've got a $60 million expenditure, you vote on it in a couple of minutes and you spend 2 hours on the $10,000 generator.
Yes. It's so true because so often, and to be fair, it's not just what happens in that meeting. There's a lot that leads up to that meeting. So a $10,000 generator, we probably haven't talked. Actually, it's everything over $20,000.
Okay.
We don't deal with I love it when $19,000 appropriations come in because we don't have to deal with it. But when it's $20,000 and above, it might not be talked about at great length in the RTM. So then people are just learning about it, or they haven't paid attention to it. So it turns into a debate, and not just that kind of brings it down a little bit too much, but on small expenditures. But when there's a $60 million expenditure, the town knows about it. We've talked about it. It's gone through a lot of committees. People have pretty much made up their minds. And while they might want to explain their position, there's not so much debate on everything.
Sure. You mentioned the plastic bag ban. Any other really proud moments for you stand out?
Well, that's certainly my proudest one, just because it continues and it's been really good. We did have a single-use plastic ban that took place right before COVID, and so it's been off to a rocky start. And I don't think enough people really know that it exists. I still get plastic straws in my iced tea, and I still get recyclable plastic cups a lot of places. But Andrew Colabella led that charge, and it really is a terrific thing. It's really in tune with the times, and the state is pretty much embracing a lot of that. So that was a terrific thing. The way we've handled a lot of big appropriations, I don't know. I'm proud of a lot of the things the RTM does. I know it has a bad reputation because, or among some people, it has a bad, questionable reputation because, kind of like Congress, it's making sausage, and people realize making sausage is really, really difficult and controversial sometimes. But it's a really good group of people, good group of smart people, good group of representative people. And so I'm a fan.
All walks of life.
All walks of life, everything. It's not as I'm not talking out of turn when I say we have a guy who clerked for a Supreme Court justice, and we have a guy who spent some time in a homeless shelter. I mean, it's really a very strong, wonderful group of people.
Great. Any votes you would like to take back?
Interesting. And this gets into politics. I'm the moderator. I'm a radical moderate. I don't really like to get into politics. I was very disappointed that Barron South remained totally open space. I thought there was a really good combined use of that, keeping 15 acres open, 7 acres for senior housing, which then the town wouldn't have had to pay anything for to maintain. Now we're really facing a lot of money to take care of Golden Shadows, a lot of money to take care of the houses that are there that I looked at Homes with Hope as affordable housing, but it would be among the most expensive affordable housing to convert to affordable housing. And now that's on the town. And I sort of, from a financial point of view, I feel badly that didn't happen. That really is probably the one that I wish I'd pushed harder to figure out a way to make that happen. Beyond that, you look at Westport and you see what the RTM has done. You've seen what the select men and women have done. It's pretty hard to say we did anything really, really badly. I mean, there just aren't many eyesores out there in my mind.
Yeah. You mentioned the financial decisions, and you were an international banker for 30 years, and then you pivoted. You became CEO of Homes with Hope, and you were dealing with homelessness and hunger. What was behind that career move? Well,
I was on the outreach committee of my church, Christ and Holy Trinity, and met Pete Powell. And in 1989, I agreed to go on the board of the then Interfaith Housing Association. And then very quickly got transferred up to Canada with my bank. And so we lived there for 2 years, and then came back. And after a couple more years, I got back on the board of Interfaith Housing. So I was very, very familiar with the organization. And in 2009, when Pete Powell said he was retiring, I had been in banking a long time. I'd been commuting a long time. And I asked my wife if it would be acceptable to think about signing up to apply for this job. And great supporter that she is, she said, well, you've been wanting to do that all your life. So I applied, and I knew I had no background in homelessness other than being on this board, but it's such a wonderful community organization that I had a lot of involvement in the community, and also realized if you don't run a not-for-profit like a business, you're not going to have a not-for-profit very long. So it was a wonderful experience, and so I started that and left banking and have never looked back.
When you look back on those 10 years with Homes with Hope, what are you proudest of? What were some of the high points of that tenure?
I'd say I'm proudest of Westport. I know you've referred to this, and so it's a great story, but I took a lot of people on a lot of tours, and I had a friend here from Charlottesville, Virginia, and I took him on a tour, and we finished up downtown and drove by Gillespie Center, and he was observing everything. He said, you must be the only town in America that has a homeless shelter 2 doors from Tiffany's. And it's the first time I had really noticed it, and it's really true. Westport and Tiffany's and the homeless shelter, Westport has allowed those two to coexist and, in my mind, be a model of suburban homelessness that absolutely no one else is interested in looking at. You can't tell a community, an affluent community anywhere, that having a homeless shelter right downtown is additive to the town. They think it's going to lower property values, but it has added so much to Westport. So many people have volunteered, brought meals, owned it, and it really is, I think, a great credit to the town. So that's one thing I'm particularly proud of, and I spent a lot of time cheerleading about that because I think Westport has to understand. Interestingly, in 2019, Bloomberg, and I don't know how they do this, and I don't know if I agree with it, but they had a list of the 50 richest towns in America in 2019, and I don't know how they did it, what metric they used, but Westport was number 17 on the list of 50 richest towns in America. I went through that list of 50, and there was one town in America, among the 50 richest towns in America, that had a homeless shelter, and that was Westport. And that's where the money is. That's where the support is. Instead, we have everybody go to New York and San Francisco, and then they say, oh, woe is me, there are too many homeless people in San Francisco. That's because they had to go there, and they should be in their hometown. So don't get me started.
But what is it about Westport that, why Westport?
Well, because in 1983, the leaders of the faith community decided it wasn't right to send these homeless people who had been released from mental institutions, mostly in the early 80s, to Norwalk or to Bridgeport or to New York or whatever. We should take care of them ourselves. So I love going to Oko Restaurant and telling the waiters that this used to be a homeless shelter. The second floor was the first homeless shelter, and they got the town to give them space at there, and then when that was developed, move it over to Gillespie Center. And I think inertia is a big part of it. It's been here almost 40 years, and the town's very used to it, and they like it, and they're proud of it, and it's kind of hard to say it doesn't work or that it's hurt things.
You said it contributes to the town.
Mm-hmm.
What does it contribute besides giving people, a place to sleep and eat? What does it do for the town?
So I used to love to go to the middle schools at Thanksgiving time and do their Thanksgiving assemblies and stuff like that. And I'd always start saying, okay, how many kids in here have served a meal at Gillespie Center? And half the hands went up. Tell me that doesn't contribute to a town. That's all you need to know. It's such, and by the time kids get to high school, they're all aware of Gillespie Center, they're aware of homelessness, they're aware it happens in their own town, in their own affluent town, and it's not as much of a stigma, I guess, as it would be a lot of places.
Wow.
So
you left Homes with Hope and you went to Goodwill.
Yes.
I am sensing a pattern here.
Well, I retired from Homes with Hope, and I had no intention of doing anything else. And after 10 years, I retired for a couple reasons. One, I had done pretty much everything I wanted, not everything I wanted to do, but everything I'd done it 10 times, 10 years. And I thought, maybe my energy is running low, but important than that, the organization's energy probably is running low. We need new eyes, new energy. And boy, did we get it with Helen McElendon. She's just been terrific as the new CEO. And I say that because it makes me realize my decision was really, really correct in that every organization needs new energy. She knows more people. She has much better connections, frankly, at the state, which is becoming a more and more important part of how we operate, though Homes with Hope, so much privately funded that we haven't had to worry too much about state. But that was very good. And then after a couple weeks, I had a lunch with a guy from Goodwill, a friend, and they needed an interim CEO. And I said, well, I got nothing else to do. So I started 2 weeks before COVID, and the Goodwill closed. After 2 weeks, we closed 21 stores, laid off 500 people. And I said, well, I don't want that to be my legacy. So I was there for 2 years, and I stayed and then retired. And it seems to be taking this time. But okay. I'm not sure that's a good thing or it's a bad thing, but it's definitely taking.
So what is your legacy at Goodwill?
The big thing, Goodwill is a great organization. It's very misunderstood in a lot of ways, but there are 156 Goodwills across America. They're all private 501c3s. This one in Bridgeport, which has the Westport store, by far the leading store of the 21, is its own 501c3. It has its own board of directors. It's run independently. Its mission is to employ 1,000 people that might otherwise have great difficulty getting employed throughout Western and Northern Connecticut. And then it has career centers that help other people in the area get jobs, write resumes, get employment opportunity. There, I think we made it through COVID. I mean, it was really the first couple months of COVID were really, really concerning when you have no revenue. You closed 21 stores. We were closed for 6 weeks. We still had a lot of people on the payroll, and it was a very desperate time, actually. It was kind of scary. We opened up again 6 weeks after we closed, June 1st of 2020, and people were very slow to come back because we were all nervous about COVID. It took a while, but then 2021 was just a fabulous year because people were hurting. They were looking for ways to find inexpensive clothing and inexpensive items. And so we did a very good job. The other great thing was shopgoodwill.com is the internet buying site, which is kind of like a small eBay, but it's all the Goodwills in America combine all their things that they're not quite certain how to price. And it goes online, and then you can go on and bid on stuff just like eBay. And it really helps Goodwill maximize what they get out of a donated item. But they usually go for less, so the people get bargains just like in a Goodwill store. And that grew from almost nothing, because it had just started when I got there, but we kept giving them more warehouse space. And it became our second biggest store after Westport.
Wow.
So that was really a great thing.
Wow.
It was a really fun experience. I had a great time.
You've done so much.
Mm-hmm.
Staples Tuition Grants, Rotary.
Wonderful organization.
Rotary Club.
Wonderful organization.
Christ and Holy Trinity.
Yeah,
that's
great,
wonderful
great,
too.
great.
What drives all this volunteerism and what do you get out of it?
Oh boy, I get everything out of it. It just is. It's more educational for me than what I offer them. And I'd add positive directions to that, which is another. I really learned early on that it was fun to work with Westport organizations, Homes with Hope, homegrown organization, Staples Tuition Grant, homegrown organization. Rotary certainly is big Rotary, but it's really a homegrown organization. It'll be celebrating its 100th anniversary in a year and a half, which is pretty incredible. Positive Directions, homegrown organization. These are things that I feel like I can really contribute to. And if anybody really does listen to this podcast about someone they don't know, especially if they're in their 30s and 40s, I would just encourage everyone to get involved with one organization. It doesn't take that much time, but it adds so much to the fabric of life, and it helps Westport so much. It can be the RTM, it can be a board of some local organization, but it really is just a great way to expand your knowledge, understanding, and in a lot of ways, tolerance for other thoughts that you might not otherwise have.
So all these new people who have moved into town, and people in their 30s and 40s with great energy and sharp.
Smarts.
Oh, they're great people.
Yeah.
Is it your sense that they are getting involved in these groups because, eventually people will age out, or to use the technical term,
are aging.
Die? Are the pipelines being replenished?
I don't know. I think that's a concern. I don't know the answer to that. I guess my first thought is it's not the first thing that comes to mind, right? In this world, the first thing that comes to mind is survival. I get that. We've got some great young members of the RTM. Some are single, some are young mothers, young fathers. They're surviving, they're getting through, and it's wonderful that they're offering their time to Westport. So first of all, survive. That's the main thing. But if you do have extra time to be able, I don't think it's the first thing that comes to mind. But I think people should think about it and should try to find something. I say they should. I recommend they do, because it was so beneficial for me. And I was away a lot of nights, and my kids probably say I went to too many meetings, but I don't know. They've turned out okay, and they're citizens, and they're good, responsible people. So, they're just things that you can do that are enriching. it's selfish as much as anything, you know.
Well, it sounds like you modeled the right behavior for them to, get involved in your community, the importance of that.
Well, maybe.
So what got you and Pat here in 1985? It wasn't COVID like it is now.
No. I wish I could say that we saw Westport and loved it, but I can't. We were overseas in Hong Kong in 1983 it was, and the bank I was working for said, "You've been away since 1978. Since then, interest rates have gone way up. We're going to do you a deal, and we're going to give you a mortgage. You find a house you want to buy, we're going to give you a mortgage for 10%. And that was such an incentive that we came back on home leave for 1 week, and we were in New York, we started in Bronxville. We made a bid on a house in Bronxville, and we knew we wouldn't live in it for possibly many years, but we just wanted to take advantage of a 10% mortgage rate, believe it or not. And didn't get there, worked our way up, and we found a house we really loved in Westport. Didn't really even have that much time to look around the community, and then we bought it, rented it out for 2 years, and then moved back in 1985. And then, it just was home from the minute we got here. It just made such great friends and everything.
Sure. Changes? Has the town changed for the better, the worse, both?
It's changed a lot, and the only I don't know. It's changed a lot. I miss a couple things. I miss more services, probably downtown. I think I joke that you can buy any kind of cashmere sweater you want anywhere in Westport, but you can't buy a hammer. Although Westport Hardware is great, I love it. You can't buy a hammer, but I'm always worried it's hard to buy gas because they're going away. So from a service standpoint, a lot of things are going away. The one thing that I really, really worry about in terms of change is the opportunity for young people to do what we did, which is to move into a relatively priced home, is going away. There just aren't that many affordable houses in Westport. And there's very little affordable housing, but for young families to move in, it's hard to build from the ground up here. And that's the one change I bemoan, but other than that, I think it's a pretty wonderful place, and it has just served us so very, very well that Pat and I just love it and wouldn't think of living anywhere else.
So let me end with just a few quick favorites.
Oh.
Top of your head answer.
Okay.
Don't think about them. Favorite place in Westport?
Favorite place? Campo Beach, I guess, or the golf course, the recreational places. I pretty much, I got a lot of favorite places though. But those, I would go with those two.
Restaurant.
I'd give a big shout out to Tootie's. Gotta love Tootie's. That's a long term. My chicken scarp at Tootie's.
Oh, it's so good.
It's so good. I'd have to go with Maria and Pasquale. Yeah.
Good choice.
Yeah.
Favorite townwide event?
Oh, well, Memorial Day. Lobster Fest, the Rotary Club is Lobster Fest. Forgive me, Rotary Club. Lobster Fest is certainly right up there, but nothing beats a good Memorial Day. Yeah.
And you march with the RTM.
March with the RTM, absolutely. Could march with a lot of other things too, but stick with the RTM because it's fun turning that corner on Post Road and seeing everything right at the front. It's kind of fun. So that's good.
Hidden gem, which probably won't be hidden after this podcast, but
oh boy,
what's your hidden gem?
Oh boy, hidden gem. I don't know what's hidden. Let me think. I don't.
I've stumped you.
You've stumped me. I read 06880. Nothing's hidden.
It's all out there.
What's your favorite hidden gem?
Haskins Preserve.
Whoa, up there.
Off Greenacre
Oh,
Lane,
Dogwood
off
and-
of South Campo.
Right,
Yeah.
that's a good one. Oh,
Yep.
that's good.
If anybody doesn't know it, it's check out Haskins Preserve.
Right. And we rented a house around there for a little bit, and that used to be a running route, but I haven't been there for a long time. That's good.
Perfect. And so the last question, you've got the magic wand. You can wave it. You can change the town. You can do something big or small. What would you wish for with that magic wand?
Well, I'd get back to more starter homes, more affordable housing. I love listening to Rob Haroon's talk about, and Daniel Dobin's been great on P&Z, but we've got a real challenge with affordable housing just because we have space issues, of course, and whenever there is increased activity, it gives people concern. I think that leads, though, then to traffic. And if I could change traffic, I would get rid of Waze. I'd make sure that the state of Connecticut cleared accidents off I-95 quicker. That's one thing I've talked about, that we have apparently a policy of investigating traffic accidents and then clearing. And I think we should just clear them, take a lot of pictures and clear them, and not have these 5-hour backups. And then we wouldn't have 5-hour backups through Westport. But some we're really victim to bad traffic on I-95 in the Merritt. So that's a pet peeve. As I ramble through, I'd say traffic as much as anything. I
think you will not find many people who will disagree.
Yeah, really right at the top of the chart. I mean, the town's wonderful. It's just there are a few things that you could say we should do to improve it, or bad things that we should fix. I mean, you can always come up with things, but traffic is one thing that is an external factor that is coming to bear internally, which is a problem.
And probably out of the RTM's control.
And out of the RTM's control. That was one thing when we were doing the plastic bag ban, and now that we're doing leaf blowers, we do get a couple emails that say, why are you spending your time on, the world's such a mess. Why would you spend your time on banning plastic bags in Westport or leaf blowers in Westport? And my response is, I would love to pass an ordinance that there will be world peace and have there be world peace. But we can't control that. We can only control what we can control, and we can only exercise what we can exercise to show the world that we're aware and we care and try to be a model for other people. And so I guess I'm not as averse to having government nudge people in the right direction as some people are. And if we can help that process, we help that process.
Well, the RTM helps that process, and you've helped us all in Westport. So thanks for a very engaging conversation. Jeff Wieser, the RTM moderator, and many other hats. Thank you.
If I could just say one more thing, if anyone's gotten this far in this conversation, and I know I'm supposed to point this, think of running for the RTM. We need you, especially you youngsters who are going to be here for a long time. It's a great organization, and we would love to have competitive races in all districts, even mine, so think about the RTM.
And the next election is a year from now.
November of every odd year, 2 years, every odd year.
An odd year for an odd group that gets some really good things done.
Exactly. There we go.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dan.